All right, well, hey everybody, we're back. It's BJ.
And Patrick.
And we're here talking about real estate and what's going on in the real estate world on Vancouver Island and in BC. And, we want to continue on with the conversation we started the last time we were here, talking about the changes the government is making to the Strata Act and what stratas can and cannot do. We talked about a couple of the things that are the main points being addressed, but before we even get to that, what do you think about the whole part of consultation and actual process and due process before making these kind of decisions? Because I don't think there's been a lot, right?
Well, to start off with, I guess, all of a sudden, November 24th, these Strata amendment changes were just announced. Well, I'm not aware of any consultation of stakeholders, have like any association for all of Strata owners been consulted in all of this? Or was it just like, hey, I've got a good idea somewhere in a back room, and why don't we do this? This will free up a certain amount of homes that are not rentable to be rentable. So,
yeah,
I'm sure they had some thought process behind it, but I'm not sure if there was any diplomatic process to arriving
right?
to these choices.
Yeah, and I think it's important, and I want to be clear. I'm not talking about what I think about the decisions that they made. What we're talking about is I'm just talking about due process, and are you stepping over the parameters that you gave the stratas and strata councils to start with, and is it, are you doing this in a reactionary way? Are you doing this without due diligence and without, like we said, about consultation?
I think as a condo owner, you could feel that the government has overreached their powers.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you've given us these rights within the Strata Property Act to govern ourselves within a group of owners.
Right.
These are the rules that we're going to make. If it's going to be these pet restrictions, these rental restrictions, or whatever else they seem to be or deem to be appropriate.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they reach in there and they just change it for everybody.
Right.
So I can see some upset owners.
Yeah.
And I think I know where you're going with this. But because some of the Stratters are reacting to that.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going, is I think at some point this is going to get tested in court, because there's going to be a strata, or maybe more than one, that they're going to say, no, we're not doing that.
And we're talking about really the rental restriction.
Yeah, and
there's the other one, the age thing,
sure. And maybe they think that one's not really worth it to look at. However, we did talk about the age one. I have heard about a couple of stratas that were 19 and over that they applied to go 55 and over.
Well, that's an interesting way to compensate for the rule being removed. So the Strata, the Strata Property Act has been amended to remove all age restrictions except for 55 plus.
That's right.
So existing 18, 19 plus or 16 plus or 65 plus are all removed except for the 55 plus.
Right.
So what benefit other than, so if you're 30 years old and you're in an 18, 19 plus building and now everybody bands together with 100% agreement because they're skipping over AGMs to do this,
right,
to go directly into filing a new rule.
Right.
Of course, if there isn't 100%, not compliance, but agreement, they would have to go through a longer process.
Yeah.
They might have to do a special general meeting,
Yes.
vote 75% majority of people who attend, all those things.
Yeah.
Right, so that's a quick knee-jerk reaction, it feels like, to this rule change that's been imposed on everybody. So I'm wondering I kind of have an idea. What are going to be the consequences, the unintended consequences of turning it to 55 plus?
Sure. And yeah, I agree. There's going to be a whole different side of things to visit on that. Just like even on the change of the age restriction, what difference is that really going to make in the market?
Oh well, supply-wise, the intent is to add supply to the marketplace, be it either rentals or the free market,
Sure.
or the open market.
Sure.
Right, but last time as I was reading numbers, like out of what was it, something like 760 condos excluding 55 plus buildings, it was something like 46 condos had an 18 or 19 plus restriction on the whole island.
Right.
So really, like, it's a drop in the bucket.
Right.
In trying to make a solution for supply.
Sure.
Right.
Right. And I would agree with that. And I guess we don't know what the mainland demographic is like for stratas, but I would
Sure.
think that there's probably going to be something similar, that the vast majority are not do not fall into that 16 plus or 19 plus age restriction, or 30 plus or whatever.
So they're affecting something that's, let's say, less than 10% of the inventory would be affected. And that
Yeah.
still doesn't mean, just because the age restriction or rental restriction is removed, that you're going to automatically open it up to a ton more buyers and solve anything.
Right. Yeah.
That's
I would agree. So I think, it may look good or sound like they're doing something positive, but,
all in all in the end.
I don't think it's pretty marginal in terms of what the numbers. I get the idea. I think the idea makes sense, and I like that they're trying to do something. But I think, like we're saying, due process is pretty important, and making sure that there is some consultation when things like this are done. And I know that in the past we've seen where decisions have been made that affect the real estate world and industry, where they may have consulted stakeholders, but they just decided to do what they wanted to do anyway.
That is my experience. Anytime I've ever sat on a panel for like a stakeholder in the real estate industry, and then when the announcements come out, like all the recommendations seem to be completely ignored. And it just doesn't seem like any of it's being taken seriously. They haven't. The government has their own ideas, and they're gonna implement them, and then that's it, right? We can go off about the cooling off period. Now they're gonna not effectively remove bully offers by regulating how we're going to.
Right.
If we defer offers, how we're going to treat them.
Right.
And this is not the government, but our national association. It's like, people would have issues or complaints about coming soon listings, and then all of a sudden we're going to regulate exactly. I think in a good way, regulate how that's done, but
Sure.
it takes away consumers' choice of how they want to market their property.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely.
that's a really deep rabbit hole we can keep going down on, but just touching on the removal of age restrictions.
Right.
Let's go back to that, just sort of try to stay on track here. So having an age restriction in the first place, unless it's in an older established community and the demographic is already older on average.
Right.
So if you have like $1 million condo that's 55 plus, it's probably not going to be affected in value. I think the average condo or townhouse that's going to be sold out there that's under 55 plus, restricting buyers on a whole devalues your property.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You have a smaller buyer pool that can go buy in a place that's not 55 plus as well.
Right.
Right? And if there's an age restriction, those prices have historically been suppressed.
That's right.
So to volunteer, this is my opinion, my assumption, looking at numbers. If you change from 18 or 19 plus to a 55 plus, I think by removing the a bigger pool of buyers and restricting it to a smaller pool, you're going to suppress the value. You're going to lower the value or desirability to the biggest amount of buyers.
Right. So now the flip side is happening.
Yeah.
Because you're in theory going to create some value in some of these previously age-restricted buildings.
That's the lifestyle you want.
But I'm saying you're adding value because you're removing that age restriction.
Yes, you're opening yourself up to
So
more buyers.
In theory, you're at least, I mean, this strata councils probably don't want to hear that, but in theory, your potential is that you'll appreciate the value of the building.
Yes. Well, I always look at it from like a realtor's duty, a fiduciary duty to our client.
Yeah.
So then when I see things that would be opposite to our fiduciary duty, I wonder why people would do that.
Right.
Why would you on purpose try to devalue your property? Now, of course, like I'm not responsible for somebody's devaluing of a property. My point would be like, hey, I'm going to give you the information. If you make this decision or that decision, these are the consequences of each. Now you make your own decision.
Right.
So maybe everybody in those condo buildings that are changing to 55 plus, they're okay with that.
Yeah, well, they have to be, right? For those ones that made the adjustment.
Unless they made a knee-jerk reaction and didn't think about the unintended consequences.
Sure. Hopefully they did. It didn't. I mean, they did some thinking and so on, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So hopefully.
But at the end of the day, we're out of time. We didn't get to talking about the rental part, which is actually where we wanted to go. But in the meantime, we'll come back and talk about kind of the whole what's happening with the rental part of things. But in the meantime, please, if you're watching this, please subscribe and like. It helps us with getting the word out there, and just that we're here, sharing about some real estate stuff. We talked, different things too. We spent one episode where we just talked about great things to do around Victoria and in the Christmas season and stuff like that. So if there's something that you'd like to have us talk about, or something you'd like to have us address, or answer any questions that you have, please, feel free to put it in the comments. Otherwise, like and share what we're doing, please. We appreciate that.
Yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.
See ya.